The soft click of Simone's heels echoed across the marble floor, drawing glances from every corner of the lounge. She moved with quiet confidence, her posture straight, eyes steady. Jada trailed behind, her backpack slung low, scanning the room for a friendly face and finding none. Conversations dipped as they passed, voices dropping to whispers, eyes darting away only to flicker back when they thought Simone wouldn't notice. A barista behind the counter paused mid-pour, watching them approach. He forced a smile, but his eyes slid past Simone as if she were invisible. The air was thick with the scent of roasted coffee and something colder. Judgment, unspoken, but heavy. Simone paused at the check-in desk. The attendant's fingers hovered over the keyboard, smiling tight. "May I help you?" he asked, tone clipped. Simone nodded, sliding her card across. "Simone Booker, I have a reservation." The attendant glanced at the screen, then at Simone, then back again. "Just a moment." He pressed a button under the desk, eyes never meeting hers. Jada shifted her weight, voice low. "Why's everyone staring?" Simone didn't answer, her gaze fixed on the glass walls reflecting her image back. Sharp, alone, unyielding, a couple in designer suits whispered, their laughter brittle. The server at the far end of the room set down a glass a little too hard, the sound sharp in the hush. Simone straightened her jacket, refusing to shrink under the weight of 100 silent stares. Jada squeezed her hand, the gesture small but grounding. The lounge was beautiful, but every surface seemed to say the same thing: "You don't belong here." Simone held her head high, letting the silence speak for her. Landon appeared behind the desk, his steps deliberate, his eyes cool as he scanned Simone from head to toe. He picked up her card, turning it over twice before sliding it through the reader. The machine beeped, but he frowned, pretending to study the screen. "Just a quick verification, Dr. Booker. Corporate's been strict lately." Simone's jaw tightened. "My reservation is confirmed. I received the approval myself." Landon shrugged, tapping at the keyboard. "Sometimes things slip through. We have to be careful with access." Jada shifted beside her mother, voice tense. "You didn't check the last guy's card." Landon ignored her, eyes never leaving the monitor. "It's just procedure." Simone's voice was measured, but there was steel beneath it. "Your procedure seems selective." A brief silence. The attendant at the counter looked away, pretending to clean a spotless surface. Landon finally handed the card back, his smile brittle. "You're all set. Enjoy your stay." Simone took her card, holding his gaze for a beat longer than necessary. "Thank you for your diligence," Jada muttered. "Unbelievable," under her breath as they moved away. Simone placed a calming hand on her daughter's shoulder, her own face unreadable. The tension lingered, thick as fog. Simone's dignity remained intact, but the sting of the moment was real, a reminder that even the highest achievements could be questioned with a single doubting glance. She led Jada toward the lounge seating, her steps steady. Around them, conversations resumed, but the atmosphere had shifted. Every gesture, every look seemed to weigh more than before. Simone didn't look back, but she felt the eyes on her, the judgment, the challenge. She answered it with silence, her head unbowed. Celia's laughter floated through the lounge just as Simone and Jada approached their reserved table by the window. Celia was already seated, her purse draped over the chair, a server pouring sparkling water into her glass. Landon hovered nearby, his posture relaxed, his tone suddenly warm. "So glad you could join us, Ms. Rowan. Your favorite seat as always." Simone paused, eyes narrowing. "Excuse me, this table was reserved under my name." Landon's smile didn't falter, but his voice cooled. "There must have been a mix-up. Ms. Rowan is a frequent guest." Celia glanced up, her expression polite but dismissive. "I'm sure there's somewhere else you can sit." Jada's hand balled into a fist. "She booked this seat days ago." Landon stepped between them, lowering his voice. "We'll find you another spot, Dr. Booker. Please, this way." Simone looked around. Other guests watched, some pretending not to notice, others openly curious. No one intervened. The server avoided her eyes, quickly clearing another table. In the corner, Simone's voice was calm, but her words were heavy. "It's clear where I'm welcome." Jada hesitated, anger burning in her eyes. Simone gathered her things, her movements slow, deliberate, refusing to let the humiliation show. She led Jada to the new table, her back straight, her silence louder than any protest. Celia's laughter resumed, softer now, but the message was clear. The seat by the window, the one with the best view, wasn't for them. Simone settled into the corner, her dignity unshaken but her heart heavy. Jada sat beside her, glaring across the room. The lounge buzzed with quiet judgment, the power shift complete. Simone's eyes lingered on the window, the place denied to her, and she let the silence speak. Jada sat stiffly beside her mother, her gaze fixed on Celia across the lounge. She could feel the injustice burning in her chest, every laugh and sideways glance stoking the fire. "You're just going to let them do that?" she whispered, voice tight, barely holding back tears. Simone didn't answer right away. She unfolded her napkin, movements careful, face unreadable. Around them the low hum of conversation continued, but Jada heard nothing except her own pulse pounding in her ears. Jada's hand trembled as she reached for her phone. "I could post about this. People need to see." Simone placed her hand gently over Jada's. "Not yet." Jada's frustration boiled over. "Why do you always let them get away with it? Why don't you say something?" Simone met her daughter's eyes, her own gaze steady. "Because sometimes dignity is louder than anger." Jada looked away, jaw clenched. "It doesn't feel like it." Simone squeezed her hand, her voice soft. "I know, but you're watching. Others are watching. That matters." Across the room Celia glanced over, then turned away unconcerned. Landon chatted with another guest, his laughter forced. No one came to their table. The isolation was complete. Jada's anger simmered, but she swallowed it, watching her mother hold her ground in silence. She realized, painfully, that restraint could be its own kind of protest, a lesson that stung more than she wanted to admit. Simone sat tall, her presence unbroken, her silence a shield. Jada leaned into her, needing the comfort. The world didn't change, not yet, but something inside Jada did. The moment ended, but its weight lingered, heavy and unresolved. Behind the polished glass divider, Landon leaned close to Celia, his voice low but clear enough for Priya to catch as she refilled a tray. "You see why we have to keep standards high?" he murmured, a smirk tugging at his lips. Celia let out a soft laugh, swirling her drink. "Some people just don't fit the atmosphere, darling, it's obvious." Priya's hand paused mid-pour, her eyes flicking to the reflection in the glass. She forced herself to finish, setting the tray down with a care that masked the tightness in her chest. The laughter from Landon and Celia was quiet, but it cut through the lounge's hush like a blade. Celia glanced over at Simone's table, her gaze lingering, then dismissed them with a flick of her wrist. Landon followed her lead, his posture relaxed, his confidence unshaken. "It's better for everyone," he said, voice barely above a whisper. Priya's fingers trembled as she wiped the counter, the cloth catching on a water ring. She looked up, catching Simone's eye for a split second. Simone's face was unreadable, but Priya saw the exhaustion there, the weight of being watched, measured, found wanting. The laughter faded, replaced by the clink of glasses and the low murmur of privileged conversation. Priya retreated to the staff area, her breath shallow. She pulled out her phone, hesitating, then slipped it back into her pocket. Not yet. In the lounge, Simone sat unmoved, Jada's anger still simmering. Beside her, the room seemed smaller, the air heavier. Landon and Celia's laughter lingered, echoing in Priya's mind, a reminder of how easy it was for some to wield power and how quietly others were expected to endure. Marcus approached Simone's table, His steps hesitant, the radio at his belt crackling with static. He cleared his throat, eyes darting to Landon, who nodded once. Permission given. Order understood. Marcus's voice was barely above a whisper. "Dr. Booker, I'm going to have to ask you to come with me." Jada's eyes widened. "Why? She hasn't done anything." Simone met Marcus's gaze, searching for something. Regret, apology, anything. He looked away, jaw tight. It's what I was told." Simone stood, gathering her things with slow precision. "Of course." Jada's voice quivered. "This isn't fair." Marcus's hand hovered near Simone's elbow, but never touched her. "I'm sorry. I really am." Simone nodded, her tone even. "I know you are." They walked toward the exit, the lounge's eyes following, some curious, some relieved. Marcus's steps were heavy, his shoulders slumped. At the door, he paused, voice low. "It's not right. None of it." Simone offered a small, tired smile. "You're not the only one who knows." Jada glared at Landon, who pretended not to notice. Celia sipped her drink, unconcerned. The staff behind the counter whispered, their words lost in the clatter of dishes. Marcus lingered a moment longer, then let the door close behind them. The sound echoed, final and cold. Outside he exhaled, rubbing the back of his neck. "I wish I could do more." Simone's reply was soft. "You did enough. For now, Ma." Marcus walked away, guilt clung to him, heavy and unshakable. Simone and Jada stood in the hallway. The world on the other side of the glass unchanged, but the cracks in its foundation just a little wider. Simone paused just outside the lounge doors, her reflection caught in the glass. Shoulders squared, eyes steady. Jada hovered beside her, anger still fresh. But Simone's calm was unbroken. Inside, the staff exchanged uneasy glances, the memory of her quiet dignity settling over the room like a warning. Landon straightened his tie, glancing. At the exit, he tried to laugh off the tension, but the sound fell flat. Celia glanced at her phone, suddenly restless. Priya watched from behind the counter, her hands twisting a towel, heart pounding. Even Marcus lingered in the hallway, guilt etched into his posture. Jada's voice was barely a whisper. "You're just going to walk away?" Simone didn't answer. She lifted her chin, letting her silence hang in the air. The weight of it pressed on everyone who watched, a silent promise that this wasn't over. Inside, the lounge's hum resumed, but the mood had shifted. Conversations were quieter, laughter forced. Every so often someone glanced at the door, as if expecting Simone to reappear. Priya caught Simone's eye through the glass. For a moment, neither looked away. The message was clear. This moment mattered. Change could start with a glance, a pause, a refusal to be diminished. Simone finally turned, leading Jada down the corridor. Her steps were measured, deliberate, a storm, gathering strength, not yet unleashed. Behind her, the staff felt the shift. The air was heavier, the certainty of old routines shaken. Landon's confidence faltered, Celia's comfort faded, and Priya's resolve grew. The silence Simone left behind was not surrender. It was a warning, a promise that dignity could be as powerful as any protest. The reckoning would come, slow but unstoppable. Jada trailed after Simone, her voice breaking. The hush of the empty corridor. "You're just going to let them get away with it?" Her words trembled, frustration and disbelief tangled together. Simone stopped, turning to face her daughter, eyes steady but gentle. "Not for long," Simone said, her voice low, every syllable deliberate. The answer wasn't anger, it was certainty. Jada shook her head, tears threatening. "You always say that, but nothing ever changes. They just keep doing it." Simone knelt, meeting Jada's eyes. "Change is slow. Sometimes it starts with walking away, not shouting." Jada's fists clenched. "But you could have said something." You could have made them listen. Simone's hand rested on Jada's shoulder. They heard me. Even when I said nothing, they heard me. A long silence stretched between them. Down the hall the lounge doors remained closed, the world inside unchanged. For now. Jada wiped her eyes, voice barely above a whisper. I hate how quiet it is. Simone stood, straightening her jacket. Silence isn't weakness. Sometimes it's a warning. Jada nodded, understanding flickering across her face. So, what happens next? Simone's lips pressed into a thin line. We wait, we watch, and when the time is right, we act. Behind the glass, Landon paced, glancing nervously at the exit. Priya watched, hope and fear mingling in her eyes. The air was thick with anticipation, the first crack in the lounge's polished facade spreading. Simone took Jada's hand, leading her away. Their footsteps echoed, each step a quiet promise that injustice would not stand forever. The sound of splashing water and laughter echoed across the club, but Simone clung to the edge of the pool, her small hands gripping the tile. Chlorine stung her eyes, but she kept her head above water, watching the other kids play. Her mother sat nearby, book in hand, sunglasses hiding the worry in her eyes. A man in a crisp white shirt approached, his shadow falling over Simone. Excuse me, young lady, he said, voice tight. You're not allowed in this area. Simone blinked, confusion flickering. But my mom, she paid. We're members. He shook his head, glancing at her mother. There's been a mistake. Pools for families on the list. Simone's mother stood, her voice calm but firm. We are on the list. The man's smile was thin. I'll have to ask you both to leave. Club policy. Simone felt her cheeks burn. She climbed out, water dripping from her arms. Her mother wrapped a towel around her shoulders, whispering, Hold your head high, baby. Don't let them see you shrink. Simone looked back at the pool, the laughter of the other children ringing in her ears. She wanted to scream, to ask, why? But her mother's hand squeezed hers, steadying her. As they walked away, Simone heard the man mutter, Some people just don't fit here. The words burrowed deep, settling in her chest. Years later, that memory returned every time someone questioned her place. Every cold glance, every doubted credential, every forced smile from men like Landon. The lesson was always the same. Dignity was armor, silence a shield. Simone's mother's words echoed as she faced Landon now. Another man, another gate, another test. But this time, she would not shrink. She would not let the world decide her worth. Landon leaned back in his office chair, flicking through a stack of incident reports. His eyes barely skimmed the words. Guest felt unwelcome. Staff dismissed concern. Before stamping each page, resolved. He smirked, tossing the papers into a drawer already stuffed with similar complaints. A knock at the door. A black guest stood hesitantly in the doorway, voice low. I just wanted to follow up about what happened last week. I never heard. Back! Landon didn't look up. We looked into it. Nothing out of the ordinary. You're free to enjoy the lounge. The guest's shoulders sagged. But Landon cut him off, tone clipped. If there's nothing else, I have work to do. The door closed quietly. Landon exhaled, rolling his eyes. Some people just can't let things go, he muttered. He turned to his computer, clicking through emails, deleting flagged messages, without reading them. In the lounge, Priya noticed the guest leaving, head bowed. She glanced at Landon's office, unease growing in her chest. The same pattern, over and over. Flash forward. Landon, older, more confident, repeats the ritual. Another complaint, this time about Celia's behavior, ignored, filed away, never discussed. The files in his drawer multiply, a silent graveyard of ignored voices. He locked the drawer, the key cold in his hand. Resolved, he whispered, as if saying it made it true. But the silence in his office was heavy, pressing in from every side. The walls seemed to remember every story he'd buried, every voice he'd silenced. Outside, the lounge buzzed with polite conversation, but the foundation was cracked, the rot spreading unseen. Landon straightened his tie, convinced his power was unshakable. He didn't see the storm building beyond his door. Priya moved quietly through the lounge, tray balanced on her palm, eyes lowered. She paused near Landon and Celia, who sat close, their voices a low murmur just above the clink of glass. Landon leaned in, lips curled. "You see why we have to keep standards high?" His words were soft, but the meaning was sharp. Celia's laugh was light, practiced. "Absolutely. Some people just don't fit the atmosphere, do they?" She sipped her drink, eyes flicking toward Simone's empty seat by the window. Landon's smile widened. "It's better for everyone. Keeps the place exclusive." Priya's hands trembled as she set down a fresh napkin. She glanced at her phone, thumb hovering over the record button. The urge to capture the moment warred with the fear of being caught. She pressed it anyway, the device hidden beneath her apron. Celia leaned back, voice dropping. "You handled that situation perfectly." Landon's pride was obvious. "It's all about knowing who belongs." The laughter that followed was quiet, but it cut through Priya's resolve. She moved away, heart pounding, the tray suddenly heavy. She caught her reflection in the glass, face flushed, eyes wide. In the corner, Simone sat with Jada, their conversation hushed. Priya watched them for a moment, guilt gnawing at her. She wanted to say something, to do something, but all she could manage was a silent recording. Back at the staff station, Priya replayed the audio. Landon's arrogance, Celia's approval. The sound was proof, cold and undeniable. She slipped, her phone into her pocket, the laughter still ringing in her ears. The weight of complicity pressed down, but so did the spark of rebellion. Priya knew the world needed to hear what privilege sounded like. Marcus lingered by the lounge entrance, his badge cool against his chest. Landon's voice came through his earpiece, clipped and impatient. "Escort Dr. Booker out. Now." He hesitated, watching Simone gather her things. Jada's glare met his, but Marcus couldn't hold it. He approached, voice barely audible. "I'm sorry, ma'am. They want you to leave." Simone nodded, her expression calm but tired. "Of course." Jada bristled. "Why? She hasn't done anything." Marcus shook his head, unable to meet her eyes. "It's not my call. I have to." Simone stood, her dignity unshaken. "Thank you for telling me yourself." He opened the door, stepping aside. "I wish it were different." As they walked past, Marcus caught a glimpse of Landon's satisfied smirk. The sight made his stomach twist. He closed the door gently behind them, the click echoing in the hallway. Later, Marcus sat alone in the staff room, badge in his hand. He turned it over, thumb tracing the numbers. The lounge's laughter and clinking glasses filtered through the wall, but he felt miles away. A colleague entered, pausing. "Rough shift?" Marcus nodded, voice low. "I had to put someone out." "Didn't feel right?" The colleague shrugged. "Orders are orders." Marcus stared at the badge, jaw tight. "Doesn't make it right." Silence settled between them. The weight of what he'd done pressed down, heavier than the badge itself. He slipped the badge back on, but it felt different, like a burden, not an honor. In that quiet room, Marcus made a silent promise. Next time, he'd find the courage to do more than just apologize. Jada's fingers hovered over her phone, the screen aglow with an unsent message. She glanced at her mother, frustration boiling beneath the surface. "I should post this. People should know what they did." Her voice shook, anger barely contained. Simone placed a gentle hand on Jada's wrist. "Let them show who they are," she said, her tone even, gaze fixed ahead. Jada pulled her hand away, jaw clenched. "So we just take it, pretend it didn't happen?" Simone's eyes met hers, calm but unyielding. "No, we remember, we watch, we wait." Jada shook her head, voice rising. "You always wait. I want to fight back. I want them to feel what we feel. Simone's reply was a whisper, but it carried weight. Sometimes the loudest protest is patience. Jada looked away, blinking back tears. It doesn't feel like enough. Simone squeezed her hand, her own pain hidden behind a mask of composure. It never does. But trust me, they're watching. Everyone is. Across the lounge, Landon laughed with Celia, oblivious to the storm brewing at the edge of the room. Priya glanced over, worry etched on her face. Jada's phone buzzed with notifications. Friends asking what happened, demanding answers. She silenced it, the urge to expose the injustice warring with her mother's steady restraint. The moment hung between them, thick with unspoken words. Jada's anger simmered, unresolved, while Simone's quiet resolve held the line. In that silence, Jada learned something she didn't want to admit. Sometimes, dignity meant holding your fire, even as the world dared you to break. She slipped, her phone into her pocket, the fight not gone, just waiting, like her mother taught her. Priya stood alone in the staff bathroom, the hum of the lounge muffled by the closed door. She stared into the mirror, her reflection pale and uncertain. The phone in her hand felt heavier than ever. She replayed the recording, Landon's smug tone, Celia's laughter, proof of what everyone pretended not to see. Her breath caught. She hesitated, thumb hovering over the screen. A message to Ava Lynn, the journalist, blinked at the top. I can't stay quiet. The words looked small, but they trembled with risk. A knock rattled the door, making her jump. Just a minute, Priya called, voice shaky. She pressed send, the message flying into the unknown. The silence that followed was thick. Her heart pounding in her chest, she leaned against the sink, eyes squeezed shut. The recording was out there now. No taking it back. She thought of Simone and Jada, of every guest who'd been made to feel less. She thought of Landon's laughter, the way it stung. Another attendant's voice drifted through the door. You okay in there? Priya steadied herself. Yeah, just needed a second. She tucked her phone away, hands trembling. The fear was real, but so was the relief. For the first time, she'd done something that mattered. Back in the lounge, she moved quietly, watching Landon and Celia, wondering if they could sense the shift. She caught Simone's eye for a fleeting moment. Something passed between them, silent and strong. Priya returned to her duties, but inside, everything had changed. The truth was out, and she was part of it now. The risk was hers, but so was the hope. The lounge's television flickered, the usual news feed interrupted by a breaking headline. Across the screen, the hashtag #JarLoungeLockedOut flashed in bold. Guests glanced up, curiosity turning to quiet alarm as a video began to play, Priya's recording, Landon's voice cold and dismissive, Celia's laughter, unmistakable. The sound filled the room, every word a public indictment. Simone looked up from her seat, eyes narrowing as the footage looped. Jada's phone buzzed with notifications. Friends, sharing the video, comments piling up. Mom? Look, it's everywhere. Landon paled, his confidence draining away. He fumbled for the remote, turning the volume down, but it was too late. Whispers rippled through the lounge. Is that our manager? Did you hear what he said? Celia shifted in her chair, face flushing. She tried to laugh it off, but no one joined her. The staff behind the counter exchanged glances, some relieved, others anxious. Priya moved quietly, heart pounding. She caught Simone's gaze. This time, there was gratitude. The room's energy shifted, the old order shaken by a few seconds of truth. At the bar, a guest pulled out his phone, recording reactions. This is going viral, he whispered. Landon tried to regain control, voice tight. Let's all return to enjoying our afternoon. This is a misunderstanding. But the damage was done. The video kept playing, each replay a fresh wound to the lounge's image. Guests began to murmur, some standing to leave, others watching Simone with new respect. Jada leaned in, voice low. They can't ignore it now. Simone nodded, her silence more powerful than any outburst. The world was watching, and the system trembled. Ethan sat at his desk, fingers flying across the keyboard. The subject line read, "Commitment to respect" and "inclusion." He pasted in the company's boilerplate language, tweaking a word here and there. "We take all concerns seriously. Our staff is dedicated to providing an inclusive environment." He hesitated, then hit send. The memo landed in inboxes within seconds. Staff glanced at their phones, some rolling their eyes, others shaking their heads. Priya read it twice, lips pressed tight. She showed it to another attendant. "He's the one who ignores every complaint," she whispered. In the break room, someone printed out the memo and taped it to the trash can. Laughter rippled through the staff, but it was bitter, not amused. "Guess we're all fixed now." Someone muttered. Landon stalked past, face flushed. "Back to work, everyone. This will blow over." Simone received the email on her phone. She read it in silence, then deleted it without a second thought. Jada glanced over, catching the subject line. "They really think that's enough?" Simone shook her head. "It never is." Meanwhile, guests in the lounge scrolled through. Their feeds, the memo's empty promises a stark contrast to the video playing on every screen. A guest leaned over to his friend, voice low. "Words are cheap. Let's see if they actually do anything." Ethan leaned back in his chair, relieved, to have done something, anything. But the office felt colder, the walls closing in. He looked at his outbox, the memo already forgotten, and wondered if anyone believed it. The staff's laughter faded, replaced by a heavy silence. The memo was just paper, meaningless in the face of truth. Old emails resurfaced online, screenshots, shared, and retweeted. A South Asian man's message. "I was told my complaint would be investigated. No one ever called." A Latina woman's post. "They offered me a gift card to forget how I was treated." The replies came fast. "This happened to me too." Stories multiplied, each one a fresh wound exposed. Priya scrolled through her phone, heart pounding, as she read the flood of testimonies. Staff in the break room huddled around a screen, faces somber. "I remember her," someone whispered, pointing at a name in the thread. "She cried in the hallway." Simone watched the news unfold, her expression unreadable. Jada sat beside her, eyes wide. "All these people, they just stayed quiet." Simone nodded. "Sometimes silence isn't a choice. Sometimes it's survival." Landon paced his office, jaw clenched. He deleted emails, but they kept appearing. Forwarded, archived, impossible to erase. The files he'd marked resolved now screamed for attention, each one a reminder of what he'd buried. A guest in the lounge read a thread aloud, voice trembling. "They said I was too loud, too different. I just wanted to feel welcome." The staff listened, shame settling over them. Even those who'd looked away before couldn't ignore the pattern now. The rot was visible, undeniable. Jada squeezed Simone's hand. "It's not just us." Simone's voice was soft but certain. It never was. The stories kept coming, a tidal wave of truth that no memo could contain. The system's secrets were out in the open, and the world was finally listening. Outside, the lounge's polished windows reflected a new reality, one where buried voices refused to stay silent. The boardroom was tense, sunlight glinting off polished wood. Robert McKinney slammed his fist down, voice booming. "This is a misunderstanding. We've always valued our guests." His words echoed, but the faces around the table were stony, unmoved. A junior board member slid a stack of printed complaints across the table. "These aren't misunderstandings, sir, they're patterns." The room fell silent. The air was thick with accusation, the weight of years of ignored voices pressing in. Ethan cleared his throat, eyes on his lap. "We sent the memo. We're addressing it." A director cut him off. "A memo isn't action. People are watching. Our staff is scared." McKinney's face reddened. We can't let social media dictate our decisions. A murmur rippled through the room. Someone whispered, "Maybe it's time they did." The door opened. Ava Lynn, the journalist, appeared with a camera crew waiting outside. "Do you have a statement for the public?" she asked, voice calm but relentless. McKinney's bluster faltered. No comment. A director stood gathering his papers. "If we don't act, we're complicit." The board exchanged glances, loyalty fraying, confidence draining away. The foundation of power that once felt unbreakable now seemed fragile, hollow. McKinney looked around, searching for support, but found only averted eyes. The whispers in the hall grew louder, the old guard's grip slipping. He tried to speak, but the words caught in his throat. The meeting ended not with a decision, but with a heavy, uncertain silence. Down the corridor, staff paused outside the door, listening. The old order was crumbling, and everyone could feel it. Staff clustered in the break room, voices lowered, eyes darting to the door. "Did you see the video?" someone whispered, scrolling through their phone. "It's everywhere now." The air was thick with anxiety and hope, the old routines unsettled. Priya poured coffee, hands shaking. "They're talking about firing people," she murmured. Another attendant nodded. "Heard Landon's in trouble." Finally. The door creaked open. Landon entered, shoulders stiff, eyes scanning the room. Conversation stopped instantly. Mugs paused mid-air. Glances dropped to the floor. The silence was heavy, a verdict without words. He tried to muster authority. "Let's keep things professional. We have guests to serve." His voice lacked its usual edge, the command gone. No one answered. A dishwasher hummed in the background, the only sound in the room. Priya met, his gaze just for a second, then looked away. Others followed, refusing to meet his eyes. Landon's presence, once intimidating, now felt hollow, his power eroded by a dozen small acts of defiance. He left as quickly as he'd entered, the door closing behind him with a soft click. The staff exhaled, tension easing. A young attendant whispered, "Did you ever think it would change?" Priya shook her head, a small smile breaking through. "Not like this." The break room filled with quiet conversation, hope flickering in every word. The shift wasn't loud or dramatic. It was in the way people stood a little taller, spoke a little freer. Outside, the lounge buzzed with uncertainty, but inside that small room, the future felt possible for the first time. A white guest approached the desk, voice sharp. "That man, he's too loud. Can you do something?" Marcus stood behind the counter, arms crossed, expression unreadable. Landon appeared, expecting compliance. "Marcus, take care of it." Marcus shook his head. "No." Landon's eyes narrowed. "Excuse me?" Marcus didn't flinch. "He's done nothing wrong. I'm not moving him." The guest huffed, looking to Landon for support. "This is unacceptable." Landon's tone hardened. "Marcus, you have an order." Marcus stood his ground. "Not this time." A hush fell over the lounge. Staff watched, breath held. Priya's eyes widened, hope flickering in her chest. The guest stormed off, muttering. Landon glared at Marcus, but the old authority was gone. "We'll talk about this later," he threatened. Marcus just nodded, voice steady. "Whenever you want." As Landon walked away, the staff exchanged glances, some shocked, some quietly triumphant. The moment was small, but it cracked something deep in the foundation. Priya approached Marcus, voice soft. "Thank you," he offered a tired smile. "Had to happen." Word spread quickly. For the first time, someone had refused to follow an unjust order. The lounge felt different, lighter, braver. Marcus returned to his post, shoulders squared. The staff moved with new confidence, the silence between them filled with possibility. Outside, the world kept spinning, but inside, something had shifted for good. The doors opened wide. Simone stepped inside, flanked by 2 lawyers and a PR advisor. their presence silent but unmistakable. The lounge, once a stage for her humiliation, now froze mid-motion. Glasses paused halfway to lips, conversations cut off, every eye drawn. To her return, the air was brittle with tension, the kind that crackles before a storm. Landon stood behind the counter, hands twitching at his sides. His usual confidence had vanished, replaced by a nervous glance at the cluster of suits behind. Simone. He tried to muster a smile, but it faltered. Simone's steps were measured, her head high. She didn't rush. She let the silence build, let every second stretch. Jada entered behind her, phone in hand, recording the moment for the world outside. Server whispered, "She's back," to another, the words barely more than breath. Priya straightened her jacket, heart pounding. Marcus, near the door, stood up a little taller. Simone stopped at the center of the room, her gaze sweeping over staff and guests alike. The room waited, breath held. Landon cleared his throat, voice thin. "Dr. Booker, we weren't expecting—" She cut him off, her tone calm and even. "I'm sure you weren't." The lawyers said nothing, their presence enough. The PR advisor's clipboard hung at her side, ready for whatever came next. A guest whispered, "Is that the woman from the video?" Another nodded, eyes wide. Simone's eyes never left Landon's. "You know why I'm here?" He swallowed, hands fidgeting with a pen. "We can discuss this privately." "No," Simone replied, her voice steady. "We'll do this here." The lounge seemed to shrink, the walls closing in. For the first time, Landon looked small behind the counter, the weight of the room pressing down. Simone stood tall, power reclaimed not through anger, but through presence. Simone didn't blink. She closed the distance between herself and Landon, her voice calm but carrying. "You removed your boss for the comfort of a guest." The words landed with a quiet finality that made even the guests shift in their seats. Landon's hand trembled around his pen. I was just following policy. There was confusion about—" She cut him off, tone unwavering. "Policy didn't make you check my credentials twice. Policy didn't make you give away my seat." "That was you." A hush fell. The staff exchanged glances, some ashamed, some relieved to hear it said aloud. Jada's phone caught every word, her grip steady. Landon tried to recover, voice faltering. "We have rules. I was just following prejudice," Simone said, her gaze never wavering. "You made a choice. Own it." He looked away, jaw tight. "It wasn't personal." Simone's reply was soft but devastating. "It always is, when you decide who belongs." A guest near the window cleared his throat, uncomfortable. Celia shifted in her chair, avoiding Simone's eyes. Landon's excuses crumbled, his posture shrinking. I didn't mean—" "You did," Simone said. "You meant every word, every action, and now everyone sees it." The silence was thick, the kind that leaves no place to hide. Landon's authority, once so certain, felt paper thin. Simone stepped back, letting the moment settle. This isn't about confusion. It's about accountability. Landon stared at the floor, unable to meet her gaze. The staff behind him stood a little straighter, the balance of power shifting in real time. Simone's words lingered, undeniable and sharp. The room felt changed, truth spoken, the old order exposed. Priya stepped out from behind the counter, her hands trembling, but her chin lifted. Marcus moved from his post by the door, standing quietly at Simone's side. Their presence was wordless, but the message was clear. They weren't backing Landon anymore. Simone glanced at them, a silent nod of gratitude passing between them. Landon's eyes darted from face to face, searching for support. The staff behind him avoided his gaze, some shifting uneasily, others watching with cautious hope. Priya spoke first, voice soft but steady. "I heard what was said. I know what I heard wasn't right." Marcus added, "We all did. We just didn't know how to stop it. But we're not going to be silent anymore. A ripple went through the staff. One attendant stepped forward, then another. The line between complicity and courage blurred, then snapped. Landon's isolation was complete. He tried to protest, voice cracking. "You're all making a mistake. You don't understand the pressure I'm under." Priya shook her head. "We understand exactly. We've lived it." Marcus nodded, his voice firmer. "We're standing with her now." Simone didn't need to say anything. Her calm, her restraint, had done more than any speech. The room felt different. Loyalty shifting, fear melting into something braver. Landon's shoulders slumped. He looked smaller than ever, the authority drained from his posture. The staff exchanged glances, a quiet solidarity blooming. For the first time, the power in the room belonged to those who had always been told to stay quiet. Simone offered a small, encouraging smile. Change starts with one person, but it never ends there. The moment hung in the air, a turning point no one would forget. Evelyn lifted her phone, live stream already rolling. The lens caught every face. Simone's calm, Landon's pale dread, Celia's brittle composure. "We're live at the lounge," Ava announced quietly. "This is what accountability looks like." Jada leaned into the frame, her voice low. "You're all seeing this, right?" The comments began to pour in. Hearts, angry faces, questions. The hashtag #LoungeLockedOut flashed across the bottom of the screen. Landon tried to step away, but Ava's camera followed. "Anything you want to say, Mr. Pierce?" she asked, tone sharp but even. He stammered, This is all being blown out of proportion. We follow the same rules for everyone." A guest in the background shook his head. "Not what I saw." Priya and Marcus stood beside Simone, their presence a silent rebuke. The staff behind the counter watched, some with relief, others with fear. Celia tried to interject, her words brittle. "He was just doing his job." Ava turned the camera to her. "What job is that, exactly?" The silence was damning. Viewers around the world watched as the power dynamic shifted in real time. The comments scrolled faster. "This is what racism looks like." "Stand with Simone." "Fire them all." Simone didn't raise her voice. She simply stood her ground, letting the truth fill the room. The video looped on screens throughout the airport. Passengers stopped to watch. Staff from other lounges peeked in, drawn by the commotion. Landon's face drained of color as the reality set in. There was no hiding, no spinning the story. The world was watching, and the old excuses wouldn't save him. Ava ended the stream with a steady hand. "Justice isn't always loud, but today, it's impossible to ignore." Celia's voice broke, the silence, brittle and desperate. "He was doing his job," she insisted, glancing around for support. No one answered. The guests she once charmed looked away, pretending to check their phones. Even Landon wouldn't meet her eyes. She tried again, voice wavering. "You all know him. He's always professional. This is being twisted." A guest near the window shook his head. "I saw what happened. It wasn't right." Celia's composure cracked. She stood, hands trembling, searching for someone to back her up. "You're all just going to stand there? Let this happen?" Priya's reply was quiet, but firm. "We saw enough." Marcus nodded. "We're not pretending anymore." Celia's face flushed, anger and fear mingling. "You're making a mistake. People like her." She caught herself, swallowing the words, but the damage was done. Simone watched without flinching, her silence more powerful than any retort. The staff behind the counter exchanged glances, some ashamed, some quietly satisfied. Celia's privilege, once her shield, now isolated her. She looked to Landon for help, but he only stared at the floor, defeated. Ava's camera caught every falter, every pleading look. The livestream comments scrolled, "She's exposed." "No more. Hiding." Celia's shoulders sagged. She grabbed her purse, voice barely a whisper. This isn't over. But it was. The lounge, once her stage, now felt cold and empty. Even her allies kept their distance. As she hurried toward the exit, her heels echoed in the silence. A sound. Of collapse, not confidence. Simone remained still, dignity intact. The room, once ruled by Celia's charm, had shifted. The old order was gone, and everyone felt it. Landon's hands shook as he tried to gather the papers on the counter, each sheet slipping from his grasp. He looked up, searching for authority, but found only eyes watching, waiting. His voice barely rose above a whisper. I want to apologize for any misunderstanding. No one moved. Simone stood silent, her gaze steady, unblinking. Landon's words faltered. I thought I was doing what was best for the lounge. His apology sounded hollow, the confidence gone from his posture. Priya stepped forward, her voice gentle but unyielding. You weren't protecting the lounge. You were protecting yourself. Marcus nodded, arms crossed. It's over, Landon. Landon's face crumpled. I didn't mean for it to go this far. I never thought. Simone's silence pressed in, heavier than any accusation. He tried again, voice cracking. I'm sorry, Dr. Booker. I never wanted to. She didn't reply. The room didn't need words. His authority, once wielded with certainty, now dissolved into stammering and regret. A guest near the door shook his head. It's too late for sorry. Landon's shoulders sagged, his eyes shining with shame. He looked to the staff for support, but they stood with Simone. Their loyalty shifted. He gathered his things, hands trembling. The power he clung to had melted away, leaving only the memory of what he'd lost. Simone remained silent, her presence unbroken. Landon's collapse was complete. Not with a shout, but with a quiet public unraveling. The lounge was still, every witness knowing they'd seen the end of something old and the uncertain beginning of something new. Ava Lynn entered the boardroom, her recorder in hand, eyes sharp. The directors sat in tense silence, papers spread across the table, complaints, emails, evidence no longer hidden. Robert McKinney tried to command the room, voice strained. We've weathered storms before. This will pass. A board member slid a file toward him. Not this time. The public's seen everything. There's no hiding. Ava's voice was calm, unwavering. Mr. McKinney, are you prepared to address the pattern of complaints under your leadership? McKinney's jaw clenched. I've always acted in the company's best interest. Another director shook her head. You protected yourself, not our people. A murmur of agreement rippled around the table. McKinney's confidence faded, replaced by a hunted look. You're all turning on me? A junior board member spoke up, voice steady. Resign or we'll vote you out. It's over. McKinney's hands trembled as he looked around, searching for support. No one met his gaze. The silence was absolute. He tried to protest, but the words died in his throat. I did what I thought was right. Ava pressed. Will you step down? He nodded, defeated. Yes, I'll resign. The board exhaled, the tension breaking. Ava turned off her recorder, satisfied. The era of silence and protection had ended, not with a fight, but with a quiet, collective reckoning. As McKinney gathered his things, the directors exchanged glances, relief, regret, resolve. The system that once shielded the powerful had finally collapsed from within. Outside, staff waited for news. Word spread quickly. The old guard was gone. For the first time, a new beginning felt possible. Simone stood before the press, lights glaring, microphones clustered like thorns. She didn't flinch. Her voice was steady, carrying through the crowded room. Dignity is not a privilege, it's a right. The words hung in the air, echoing off marble and glass, reaching every corner. A reporter leaned forward. Dr. Booker, what do you say to those who claim this was just a misunderstanding? Simone's eyes didn't waver. A misunderstanding doesn't repeat itself. A system does. This was about more than one incident. It was about who gets to feel safe, respected, seen. Another question. Do you believe real change is possible here? Simone nodded, her answer simple. Change is already happening. You're all witnessing it. The room stilled, everyone listening. Priya and Marcus stood at the back, pride shining in their eyes. Jada filmed from the side, her hands steady, a quiet smile on her lips. A guest from the lounge called out, "Thank you!" The crowd murmured in agreement. Simone continued, voice unwavering. This is not about revenge. It's about responsibility. It's about making sure no one else has to wonder if they belong. A hush fell. Even the skeptics seemed moved. Ava, Lynn lowered her camera, meeting Simone's gaze. What do you hope people remember most from today? Simone took a breath. That justice doesn't have to shout. Sometimes it stands its ground and lets the world catch up. Flashes popped. The press conference ended, but the message lingered, clear, undeniable, and impossible to ignore. As Simone stepped away, the room buzzed with new energy. The world had heard her, and for the first time, it was listening. The lounge was hushed, every movement cautious, every word measured. Simone's speech still echoed in the air, its impact settling like dust on polished tables. Landon sat alone, staring at his shoes, hands clasped tight. Celia gathered her things quietly, slipping out the side door, her usual confidence gone. Staff members exchanged glances, some ashamed, some quietly hopeful. Priya wiped down the counter, her motions slow, thoughtful. Marcus leaned against the wall, arms crossed, watching the room with new eyes. A guest whispered, "Did you hear what she said?" Another nodded, voice trembling. "It changes everything." No one laughed. No one filled the silence with empty chatter. The old rules, who to serve first, who to ignore, who to question, felt suddenly exposed, stripped of their power. Landon tried to speak, but the words died in his throat. He looked up, searching for support, but found only averted gazes. The authority he'd relied on had vanished, replaced by a heavy, undeniable quiet. Simone walked through the lounge, head high, Jada at her side. Each step was a reminder. Justice had arrived, not with noise, but with presence. Guests watched her pass, some nodding in respect, others simply silent. Priya caught Simone's eye, offering a small, grateful smile. Simone returned it, a moment of understanding passing between them. The silence wasn't empty. It was full of realization, regret, and the first stirrings of hope. The weight of what had changed pressed on everyone, a reminder that justice, once ignored, could no longer be denied. As Simone left the lounge, the doors closed softly behind her. The silence remained, heavy and meaningful, a new order settling. And Simone stood at the front of the lounge, a quiet authority in her posture. The staff gathered, faces tense, some expectant, others resigned. She spoke clearly, no anger in her voice. Just resolve. Effective immediately, the current lounge staff is dismissed. We will rebuild. We will do better. A ripple of shock moved through the room. Landon's face drained of color. Celia, already halfway to the exit, paused, then kept walking. Priya and Marcus stood together, uncertain but hopeful. Simone continued, "We will bring in new people, people who understand what it means to serve with dignity. This space will be a place where everyone is welcome." Outside the glass, a small group of new hires waited, diverse and eager. Their reflections shimmered on the door, a promise of change. A guest near the window whispered, "About time." Another nodded, relief in their eyes. Simone looked at Priya and Marcus. "Thank you for your courage. You'll have a place here if you want it." Priya's eyes filled with tears. Marcus nodded, shoulders finally relaxing. Simone turned to the staff, her gaze steady. This isn't about punishment. It's about responsibility. It's about making sure this never happens again. As the dismissed staff filed out, some hung their heads, others looked back, regret etched deep. The air felt lighter, the old weight gone. Simone approached the door, pausing to read the new plaque. All are welcome. She smiled, a quiet satisfaction settling over her. Jada slipped her hand into her mother's. You did it. Simone squeezed her daughter's hand. No. We did. The storm had passed, but its lessons lingered. The lounge was ready for a new beginning, one built on respect, courage, and the promise of belonging for all. Landon sat at a corner table in the cafe, hands wrapped around a lukewarm cup. The place used to buzz with familiar faces, staff, who knew his order, regulars who'd nod in greeting. Now, no one met his eyes. The barista barely glanced his way, setting his coffee down without a word. He scrolled through his phone, searching for messages from old colleagues, friends, anyone who might offer comfort. The inbox was empty. He opened an email thread with the board. Old congratulations, inside jokes, promises of drinks after work. Now, only silence. The world that once protected him had gone quiet. A couple entered, laughing. Landon looked up, hopeful, but they passed without a glance. He tried to catch the server's attention for a refill, but she moved on, busy with other tables. The cafe felt colder, the morning light harsh through the window. He tapped out a message. Hope you're well. Can we talk? And sent it to a former coworker. No reply. He checked social media. His name trended for all the wrong reasons. Comments scrolled by. About time. He had it coming. No sympathy. Landon's shoulders slumped. He remembered the days when his presence commanded respect, when a smile or a nod could open doors. Now every door felt closed. He stared at the empty chair across from him, remembering meetings, laughter, belonging. The ache of isolation settled in, heavier than regret. The world had moved on, leaving him behind, alone with the consequences of choices he could never undo. He finished his coffee in silence, the cafe's warmth lost to him. Landon stood, hesitated, then left. Just another stranger in a place that no longer remembered his name. Celia's phone buzzed on the marble countertop, each vibration another reminder of what she'd lost. She glanced at the screen. 3 unfollows. A group chat removed her name, a charity gala invitation revoked. She scrolled through her contacts, but the messages were all one-sided. Her words hanging unanswered, her calls ignored. She stepped into her favorite boutique, expecting the usual warm greeting. Instead, the clerk barely acknowledged her. Busy, with another customer. Celia forced a smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. She wandered the aisles, the hush around her louder than any insult. At the cafe, her regular table was taken. She hovered, waiting for someone to wave her over, but no one did. She ordered a coffee to go, the barista calling her name without a hint of recognition. Her calendar, once packed with brunches and charity events, was suddenly empty. She checked her social feed, photos from parties she hadn't been invited to, friends tagged in places she used to belong. The comments were polite but distant. Hope you're well. Thinking of you. But no one reached out. Celia tried to text a friend. Lunch soon? But the reply was curt. Busy this week. She typed another message, then deleted it before sending. She wandered through the city, familiar streets feeling foreign. The whispers she used to ignore now seemed to follow her. Isn't that her? I heard what happened. Heads turned, then quickly looked away. Celia's world, once defined by access and applause, shrank day by day. The privileges she'd counted on slipped away quietly, leaving only the echo of her own footsteps. She realized, too late, that the circle she'd built was never really hers. She walked home alone, the silence at her side. Priya paused outside, the staff entrance, her heart thudding as she traced her fingers over the new plaque. Manager Priya Patel. The letters gleamed in the morning light, proof that everything had changed. She remembered the fear in her chest the day she hit send on that recording, the risk that nearly made her back down. Inside, the lounge was different. Staff greeted her with nods, some grateful, some still wary, but all acknowledging her authority. She walked the floor, remembering how she used to keep her head down, hoping not to be noticed, hoping to avoid trouble. Now, her steps were steady, her voice sure. A junior attendant approached, nervous. "Ms. Patel, do you want to review the new schedule?" Priya smiled, warmth in her reply. "Let's look together." The words felt right. She belonged here, not just as a worker, but as a leader. She passed the old manager's office, empty now, sunlight streaming across the desk. For a moment she remembered Landon's dismissive tone, the way he'd made her feel small. That memory faded as she sat at her new desk, arranging the files, setting a framed photo of her family beside her computer. A staff member poked his head in, hesitant. "Congratulations, Priya. You deserve this." She nodded, pride swelling in her chest. "Thank you. We all do." Priya looked out at the lounge, the space filled with new faces, new hope. Her promotion was more than a job. It was a quiet victory for everyone who had ever been told to stay silent, to wait their turn. She breathed in, letting the moment settle. The risk had been real, but so was the reward. Her name on the door was just the beginning. Marcus found the note tucked beneath his security clipboard, a small envelope, his name written in careful script. He hesitated before opening it, glancing around the lounge. Inside was a simple card. "Thank you for standing up. You made a difference." No signature, just the words. He read it twice, disbelief giving way to a quiet pride. For years, he'd kept his head down, following orders, blending into the background. That day, when he refused to move the guest, he hadn't thought anyone would notice. He did it because it was right, not because he expected thanks. Marcus slipped the note into his pocket, feeling its weight. He straightened his jacket, standing a little taller. As he made his rounds, staff greeted him with nods and quiet smiles. Acknowledgement, where there had once been only indifference. A guest stopped him near the entrance. "Are you Marcus?" she asked, voice gentle. He nodded, unsure. She smiled. "Thank you for what you did. People talk about it." He managed a shy smile in return, "Just doing my job," but inside it felt like more. For the first time he wasn't just security, he was someone who mattered, someone who'd helped change things for the better. He tucked the card into his wallet, a private reminder on tough days. Each time he felt doubt or pressure, he'd touch the note, remembering that quiet courage counted. Marcus resumed his post, posture relaxed, eyes open. The lounge felt different, safer, as if his small act had shifted the ground beneath everyone's feet. He wasn't used to being seen, but now that he was, he realized how much it mattered. Simone entered the lounge with Jada at her side, the morning sun catching the gold in her hair. The space, once tense and unwelcoming, now felt lighter. Staff paused to greet her, some with respectful nods, others with quiet smiles. Guests whispered as she passed, their words a mix of awe and gratitude. "That's her," someone murmured, the phrase rippling from table to table. Simone kept her head high, her stride unhurried. Jada walked a step behind, pride shining in her eyes. A server approached, offering coffee. "Welcome back, Dr. Booker. It's good to see you." The sincerity in his voice was unmistakable. Simone accepted with a gentle, "Thank you," her gaze sweeping the room. She noticed Priya at the manager's desk, Marcus at his post, both standing taller than before. The lounge felt transformed, not just in policy, but in spirit. Jada leaned in, voice low. "It's different now. People look at you different." Simone smiled softly. "Sometimes all it takes is one person refusing to shrink." As they walked, guests who once avoided her now met her eyes. A woman at a table mouthed, "Thank you." A young man nodded, respect clear on his face. Simone paused. Near the window, the same seat she'd been denied. She rested her hand on the back of the chair, then moved on, claiming a new spot, her choice, her dignity, intact. Jada squeezed her mother's hand. "You changed things." Simone looked around, the evidence everywhere. We changed things. The lounge, once a symbol of exclusion, now felt like a place where justice lingered in every greeting, every glance. Simone's presence rewrote the rules. Her quiet dignity, a living reminder that change, once begun, could not be undone. Social media buzzed with new energy, timelines filling with stories sparked by Simone's quiet stand. Passengers posted photos, from airports sharing moments when they'd felt invisible, and how seeing Simone's restraint gave them courage. When seen because of her trended, each post a small wave in a growing tide. A flight attendant wrote, "I watched her hold her ground. Today, I spoke up for a passenger who looked like me." Hundreds replied, sharing their own silent victories. Staff from other lounges messaged Priya, asking how she found the nerve to act. She answered honestly, "I was scared, but I couldn't stay quiet anymore." Jada scrolled through her phone, showing Simone a message. "Your mom made me believe I could belong anywhere." Simone read it, her eyes shining with pride and humility. News outlets picked up the story. Headlines flashed, "Dignity over drama. Quiet protest sparks national conversation." TV anchors debated the power of restraint versus outrage. In every segment, Simone's calm became a symbol, proof that justice could ripple outward without shouting. In the lounge, guests discussed the posts, some admitting they'd never thought about who felt welcome before. A young woman approached, Simone, voice trembling. "Thank you for making space for people like me." Simone listened, offering encouragement. "You don't need permission to belong. You already do." As the day wore on, the hashtag kept climbing. Each story, each share was a reminder change didn't have to roar. Sometimes it spread through whispers, glances, and the courage to stand tall in silence. Simone watched the movement grow, her own story now part of something bigger. The ripples reached far beyond the lounge, touching lives she'd never meet. Proof that dignity, once seen, could inspire 1,000 quiet revolutions. Simone sat at her desk in the quiet of early evening, the city lights flickering beyond her window. Her inbox was full. News requests, thank you notes, stories from strangers. She scrolled past them, pausing when a new message appeared. Subject line, "Because of you." She opened it. The words were simple, but each one struck deep. "I'm a young black woman in my first corporate job. I watched what happened to you. I've always felt like I had to shrink, to make myself smaller just to fit in. But when you stood your ground, you showed me I could belong anywhere. Thank you for showing me I don't have to apologize for who I am." Simone read it again, her throat tight. She thought of her own mother's words, the lessons in dignity and restraint, the cost of every silent battle. Tears welled in her eyes, not of sadness but of release. Jada peeked in, catching her mother's expression. "You okay?" Simone nodded, voice soft. "Someone just reminded me why this matters." Jada smiled, sitting beside her. "You always say change is slow, but sometimes it's right here." Simone replied to the email, hands steady. "You belong everywhere you stand. Never let anyone make you small." She leaned back, letting the moment settle. The fight was never just hers, it was for every person who doubted their place, who waited for permission to be seen. The city outside buzzed, but in Simone's office there was peace. The message was more than thanks. It was proof that courage, even quiet, could echo far beyond the moment. Simone smiled, knowing her story had become someone else's beginning. Simone sat alone in her office, dusk painting the city in soft blue and gold. The new lounge plaque, "All are welcome," gleamed in the hallway, catching the last light. She sipped her tea, reflecting on every step, every risk, every moment she chose dignity over outrage. Her phone buzzed with updates. New hires settling in, guests leaving grateful notes, staff meetings filled with honest voices. She scrolled through photos. Priya smiling at her desk, Marcus chatting with travelers, Jada laughing with friends. The change she'd hoped for was real, visible in every small daily act. Simone closed her eyes, remembering the cost, the loneliness, the moments she wanted to shout, to give up, but she hadn't. She'd let her silence speak, and the world had listened. A soft knock at the door. Jada poked her head in, eyes bright. "Coming home soon?" Simone smiled. "In a minute. Just thinking." Jada nodded, understanding. "It's different now, isn't it?" Simone looked at the plaque, the lounge alive with new energy. "Yes, it's finally different." She stood, gathering her things. As she left, her gaze lingered on the words by the entrance. The old world was gone. In its place, a promise. A future built on courage, respect, and quiet revolution. Her final thought echoed as she walked into the night. Change doesn't roar. It whispers, and the world listens. The story ended, but the movement continued, one silent, powerful step at a time.